Finally, I'm playing some games that let me rebind these keys. Reverse mouse. What? Who would want to do that? Wait for vertical sync. Huh, okay. I like single players with decent stories. Yeah, I can see that. Field of view, we'll leave that until I get in game. Maybe we'll change it up. Let's see. Dear Esther. Director's commentary. I don't think I need that for this playthrough. Let's just play it.
Dear Esther, I have lost track of how long I have been here and how many visits I have made overall. Certainly the landmarks are now so familiar to me that I have to remind myself to actually see the forms and shapes in front of me. I could stumble blind across these rocks, the edges of these precipices, without fear of missing my step and plummeting down to sea. Besides, I have always considered that if one is to fall, it is critical to keep one's eyes firmly open.
I think if I remember right, the speedrun strat for this game is to like tap left and right continuously or something like that until you walk faster. I like how all these games add in a zoom function. You never need it.
Donnelly reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
Oh no, I'm dead. A little wiggle wiggle. Yeah, cabbage wiggle
When you were
emo.
born, your mother told me, a hush fell over the delivery room. A great red birthmark covered the left side of your face. No one knew what to say, so you cried to fill the vacuum. I always admired you for that you cried to fill whatever vacuum you found. I began to manufacture vacuums just to enable you to deploy your talent. The birthmark faded by the time you were 6 and had gone completely by the time we met, but your fascination with the empty and its cure remained.
Are there any puzzles in this game at all, or is it just walking with story?
Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so.
Nah.
All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
I think I know what I want to do, but I just want to go out to sea. Oh. I died. I can't swim. Help.
Come back.
Aw. Hey, I got an achievement. Nice. But you guys didn't get that achievement. Miss Edith, and she did. I played that earlier. It was good. I was not expecting it to have so many different little narrative changes, like gameplay changes. I thought it was gonna be more like this, where it's a lot of walking. But yeah, it's cool. I like playing as the shark. That was fun.
Donnelly's book had not been taken out from the library since 1974. I decided it would never be missed as I slipped it under my coat and avoided the librarian's gaze on the way out. If the subject matter is obscure, the writer's literary style is even more so. It is not the text of a stable or trustworthy reporter. Perhaps it is fitting that my only companion in these last days should be a stolen book written by a dying man. When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this: to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Bathtub scene? Yeah, that was a pretty rough one.
We are not like Lot's wife.
Although there's a really cute
We
whale
feel no
in the
particular
bathtub.
need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence.
Voiceovers are randomly ordered? That's weird.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life. I would leave you presents outside your retreat in this interim space between cliff and beach. I would leave you loaves and fishes, but the fish stocks have been depleted and I've run out of bread. I would row you back to your homeland in a bottomless boat, but I fear we would both be driven mad by the chatter of the sea creatures.
There's a nice little circle to walk around in. To be honest, anytime there's narration in this game, I'm just trying to place where I feel like I've heard this narrator before and not really actually paying attention to what he says. I probably missed a good chunk of story. But we just keep on walking. Do a little wiggle wiggle. Soren's game's very abstract.
The vegetation here
Nice.
is fossilized from the roots up. To think they once grazed animals here, the remnants of occupation being evidence to that. It is all sick to death. The water is too polluted for the fish, the sky is too thin for the birds, and the soil is cut with the bones of hermits and shepherds. I've heard it said that human ashes make great fertilizer, that we could sow a forest from all that is left of your hips and ribcage, with enough left over to thicken the air and repopulate the bay.
Oh, it's Stonehenge. And we just keep on walking. One foot in front of the other. I really don't like in these narrative half walking sims or full walking sims that you can't see your legs. Like in a game where you should be able to see your legs, it's a walking sim.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome break services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
Source Engine supports that. Can't you see your legs in Portal? Maybe not. I mean, Titanfall, you can see yourself. Titanfall's in the Source Engine. Hey, if a Wolf in Autumn can call itself a game, then I'm calling this a game. I mean, here's
There must be a hole in the
some
bottom.
facts.
How else could
he's
new
done talking.
hermits have arrived?
This game right here is a pretty good example of what Death Stranding is going to be. Except you're going to be carrying something from one place to the other.
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
It's a good mental break from just doing puzzles and struggling through stuff for a bit.
I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning.
All right, Kasumi. Have a good night, man. Also have a good day at work tomorrow. Lots of rock squid.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians.
There's a shadow up there.
He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him, either. Inventory. A trestle table we spread wallpaper on in our first home. A folding chair. I laughed at you for bringing camping in the lakes. I was uncomfortable later and you laughed then. This diary, the bed with the broken springs. Once asleep you have to remember not to dream. A change of clothes. Donnelly's book, stolen from Edinburgh Library on the way here. I will burn them all on the last morning and make an aerial of my own.
Fall down.
In a footnote, the editor comments that at this point, Donnelly was going insane as syphilis tore through his system like a drunk driver. He's not to be...
Hey, an achievement.
Many of his claims are unsubstantiated, and although he does paint a colourful picture, much of what he says may have been derived directly from his fever. But I've been here, and I know, as Donnelly did, that this place is always half imagined. Even the rocks and caves will shimmer and blur with the right eyes.
I mean, you basically answered your own question. It's just like walking is a form of a tool. It's movement.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Loading. Yeah, achievement. Jakobsen.
Donnelly's addiction is my one true constant. Even though I wake in false dawns and find the landscape changing, flowing inconstantly through my tears, I know his reaching is always upon me. I first saw him sat by the side of the road. I was waiting for you to be cut out of the wreckage. The car looked like it had been dropped from a great height. The guts of the engine spilled over the tarmac, like water underground.
Going in circles. Whee! Once again, now I can suddenly swim. By swim, I mean just breathe underwater. With gills? Oh yeah, absolutely. Got them in Taiwan for about 15 bucks.
In my final dream, I sat at peace with Jakobsen and watched the moon over the Sandford Junction. Goats grazed on the hard shoulder, a world gone to weed and redemption.
He showed me his fever scars, and I mine, between each shoulder the nascency of flight.
Is that how you say it? Nascency? Really hope I'm going the right way here.
When I was coming round from the operation, I remember the light they shone in my eyes to check for pupil contraction. It was like staring up at a moonlit sky from the bottom of a well. People moved at the summit, but I could not tell if you were one of them.
God, spooky writing. What does it all mean? It looks like spooky writing, but at the same time it also looks like someone just sneezed on the wall. Came through the bright 6 shotgun. Good old sneeze gun. We going in the water. Everybody hold your breath. I made it. I didn't die. No. Wait, am I underwater? No. Well, yes and no. Some nice coins. I'm gonna die. Ah. No. Yeah. Ooh, spooky cave. it's a full moon. We're gonna turn into a werewolf. The road game's gonna begin.
I sat here and watched two jets carve parallel white lines into the sky. They charted their course, and I followed them for 21 minutes until they turned off near Sanford and were lost. If I were a gull, I would abandon my nest and join them. I would starve my brain of oxygen and suffer delusions of transcendence. I would tear the bottom from my boat and sail across the motorways until I reached this island once again.
Singing. Is there a game where you play as a werewolf? Has that ever been a game?
We begin to assemble our own version of the North Shore. We will scrawl in dead languages and electrical diagrams and hide them away for future theologians to muse and mumble over. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly and demand her
Wolf Among
answer.
Us? Like a
We will
first
mix the paint
person.
with ashes and tarmac and the glow from our infection.
Werewolf in Skyrim?
We will paint a
I don't
moon
know
over
if I'd count
Sanford Junction and blue lights falling like stars along the hard shoulder.
I was actually thinking like the same lines last night. Like, why isn't there like a slasher game? And I realized, oh yeah, Friday the 13th and Dead by Daylight and all those type of games exist. That's why.
Paul, by the roadside, by the exit for Damascus, all ticking and cooled, all feathers and remorse, all of these signals routed like traffic through the circuit diagrams of our guts, those badly written boats torn bottomless in the swells, washing us forever ashore.
Yeah, no single player slasher.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the
Oh, it's nice
Atlantic.
bird eggs.
And I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
Go back up. There's been a couple times I'm like, oh dear God, I have to walk so far back, and then I turn around and it's like, oh yeah, it was just a way to continue. Even the sons of the law, huh? There's some vampire type games out there. Why don't we have werewolves?
When Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside. He was lifeless for 21 minutes, certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright.
Yeah, I've kind of stayed away from games that are not finished. Like, some games are previews for other things,
I've
like
begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom.
Awesome Adventures
Flight of
Captain
the moon.
Spirit. It's a preview.
I've been folded along
Or
a
Life is Strange
crucial
2,
time,
but
a weakness in the sheet
it
of
itself
life.
is like a full
Now you've
thing.
settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together. If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
Is it weird that I've been holding down shift this entire time, knowing full well there's no sprint button, but it's like out of habit?
There are headlights reflected in these retinas. Too long in the tunnels of my island without a bottom. The sea creatures have risen to the surface, but the gulls are not here to carry them back to their nests. I've become fixed, open and staring, an eye turned on itself. I've become an infected leg whose tracking lines form a perfect map of the junctions of the M5. I will take the exit at mid-thigh and plummet to my Esther.
I didn't put the Stanley Parable in this for kind of two reasons. One, it like wasn't on sale and they've kind of jacked the price over the years. I just didn't feel like paying for it. And then two, it's like the fun of Stanley Parable is to go through like multiple endings. But for this, I just go through one, and it's like that. It could be like 10 minutes. It's like it didn't really seem worthwhile. Although that would be a short one to throw on there. If I had already owned it, I probably would have. It's like $30 or something now.
I have dredged these waters for the bones of the hermit,
Maybe I'm
for
misremembering.
the traces of Donnelly, for any sign of Jakobsen's flock, for the empty bottle that would incriminate him. I have scoured this stretch of motorway 21 times, attempting to recreate his trajectory, the point when his heart stopped dead and all he saw was the moon over the Sanford Junction. He was not drunk, Esther. He was not drunk at all, and it was not his fault. It was the converging lines that doomed him. This is not a recorded natural condition. The gulls do not fly so low over the motorway and cause him to swerve. The paint scored away from his car in lines like an infection, making directly for the heart. We will leave twin vapor trails in the air, white lines etched into these rocks.
That's pretty much what I'm doing with holding down shift.
Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We have always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jacobson flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
Man, you got some distance. It's gonna land in the water. And on that day, he learned how to fly. Nope. Oh, he flew. I knew it. Look at him go, he's a bird. I called it. I knew it. You could just tell. So you're a seagull all along, yep. That's why I could swim.
Come back.
It's a nice black screen. Where's my credits? Oh, there we go.